A man sits alone in a quiet room, writing reports for the Nazis. Every detail feels precise, every message sounds loyal, and yet almost everything he's sending is a lie. Not small lies, but lies powerful enough to move entire armies. So here's the question. How does one man, sitting miles away from any battlefield, manage to outplay an entire Nazi intelligence network during the deadliest war in history? And even more dangerous, why did they trust him so completely? This is the story of Juan Pujol García, the double agent who played both sides and quietly reshaped World War II. At first glance, Pujol doesn't look like a spy. No uniform, no rank, no formal training, just an ordinary man from Spain with an idea no one saw coming. He despised fascism. He saw where Nazi power was heading, and he wanted to stop it. But there was one problem. No contacts, no access, no one willing to recruit him. So instead of waiting, he did something almost unbelievable. He created his own identity, and then he walked straight into German intelligence and convinced them he was on their side. Think about that. No background, no proof. And somehow, he talked his way into becoming a Nazi spy. Sounds impossible, right? It gets worse. Because at the exact same time, he was secretly trying to work for the Allies. Two sides, both convinced he was loyal, and neither realizing they were being played. But here's where it turns dangerous. Getting in is easy. Staying believable? That's the real game. Because once the Nazis trusted him, they wanted results. Real intelligence, real updates, real proof. So how do you fake reality without getting exposed? How do you build trust using nothing but deception? And what happens when those lies start shaping real military decisions? That's where everything changes. Because Pujol didn't just lie. He engineered an entire illusion. And somehow, they believed every single word. So, how did one man convince Nazi intelligence that he was running an entire spy network? Let's break it down. Who was he, really? Not a trained agent, not a soldier, just a self-made spy, obsessive, patient, and dangerously intelligent. What was he actually doing? He was feeding Germany information. But not random lies, carefully designed reports, structured, timed, believable. Because here's the trick. He didn't just invent stories. He built a system. Where was all of this happening? Not behind enemy lines, not in secret bunkers. Pujol started in Portugal, a neutral country. Later, he moved to Britain under Allied control. So while the Nazis believed he was traveling across the UK, he was actually sitting in one place, crafting everything from research, imagination, and precision. Let that sink in. When did it start working? At first, small reports, low-risk information, nothing dramatic. But slowly, his reports became sharper, more detailed, more confident. And here's the genius part. He made mistakes on purpose. Sometimes his intel arrived late, sometimes slightly off, just enough to feel real, because perfect spies don't exist, but believable ones do, and that made him trusted. Now the biggest question, how did he avoid getting exposed? Simple answer, he was never alone, at least on paper. Pujol created an entire fake network, multiple agents, different cities, different personalities, each one sending updates, all controlled by him. He even invented delays, excuses, human errors to make the network feel alive. Think about that. Germany believed they had dozens of spies inside Britain, but in reality, it was just one man writing every single message. And here's the twist. The more detailed his lies became, the more the Nazis trusted him. They didn't just listen anymore. They relied on him. And once that trust is built, you don't just influence information, you influence decisions. But that leads to something bigger. If one man's lies were this powerful, What happens when an entire war starts depending on them? Now, everything changes. Up until this point, it's deception, it's strategy. But now, lives are on the line. Because in 1944, the Allies were preparing for the biggest operation of the war, the invasion of Nazi-occupied Europe, D-Day. And here's the problem. If Germany discovered the real landing location, the entire operation could collapse. Thousands of soldiers gone before it even began. So the Allies needed more than strength. They needed control over what the enemy believed. And that's where Pujol becomes critical. Instead of revealing the truth, he feeds the Nazis a different reality. He reports that the main invasion will happen at Pas de Calais, closer to Britain, more strategic, more logical. Exactly what Germany expected. And that's why they believed it. Now pause and picture this. An entire army positioned in the wrong place, waiting for an attack that will never come. Because of one man's information. That's not just influence, that's battlefield control, without ever stepping on one. But here's where it gets intense. Even after the real invasion begins in Normandy, Pujol keeps going. He sends urgent messages telling the Nazis this is only a distraction, that the real attack is still coming later. And unbelievably, they believe him. German forces hold their ground. Reinforcements are delayed. Critical time is lost. And in war, time is everything. That delay gives the Allies exactly what they needed. A foothold in Europe, a chance to push forward, a chance to win. So ask yourself, was this just deception, or was it one of the most decisive strategic moves of World War II? Because at this point, Pujol isn't just lying anymore. He's shaping outcomes, redirecting armies, altering the course of history. And the most unbelievable part? Germany still sees him as one of their most trusted agents. Which brings us to the final twist. What happens when both sides believe you're their hero? So, what happens when the war finally ends? When the lies, the risks, the entire illusion can finally be revealed? Here's the part that feels almost unreal. Juan Pujol García was honored by both sides. Nazi Germany awarded him the Iron Cross, believing he had served them loyally. And at the same time, Britain awarded him the Order of the British Empire for helping secure Allied victory. Two enemies, one man, both calling him a hero. But think about what that really means. He didn't win battles with weapons. He didn't command armies. He used patience, precision, psychology, and carefully crafted deception to outplay one of the most powerful intelligence systems in the world. Not through force, but through understanding how people think, what they expect, what they fear, and how easily belief can become a weapon. There's something almost unsettling about it. The idea that wars can be influenced from a quiet room. The decisions costing thousands of lives can hinge on information that was never real. And yet, in this case, those illusions helped shorten the war and saved countless lives. So the next time you think about power, don't just think about strength. Think about strategy. Because sometimes the most dangerous weapon in a war is a story people choose to believe. If this story hooked you, don't stop here. Tap into my next video, The Day America Accidentally Saved the World, because that one, it sounds impossible until you see how it actually happened.